welcome back. Congratulations on 15 seasons.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been 15 seasons already. But you're about to have another milestone as well. What else is going on?
Yeah, well, we're excited to be back. We're thrilled about 15 years of Ask This Old House, 37 years of This Old House. But as you know, we travel the country, we make house calls, and next week we go to our final state. We've actually got to drag our butts all the way out to Hawaii.
Oh, tough job. What a tough job you have. Really tough. Really, there's not an old house somewhere in the country.
Yeah, exactly. But we've also got a great announcement for the next season, which is that we got this thing called Generation Next, and we were partnered with Mike Rowe.
Oh, I love you. 30 jobs.
30 jobs, exactly. So the message is that we got to get more people, young people, into the building trades. We need more plumbers. We need more carpenters, landscape, more than that.
Get a skill.
Scholarship for these kids to get into the skill trades, to close that gap. 7 million of these jobs go in asking in the next 7 years.
And what's it called?
It is Generation Next.
Next.
Let us know what you see in vocational education in the U.S. today.
Most Americans don't understand right now the shortage of welders is critical. I mean, it's at a crisis place. I know in Alabama, over half the workforce, the skilled workforce, is over 55. They're retiring very quickly. There's nobody there to replace. Construction industry is really back on its heels down there. Same thing in Idaho, same thing in Arizona. So, yeah, I guess the short answer is, at the trade schools, the big message back to me is thank you for talking about this, because as more people understand the opportunities that exist, we'll be able to fill out our full complement of space, and that's all to the better. But right now, their biggest obstacle is getting through to parents, guidance counselors, and ultimately kids that a career in the skilled trades is something more than a vocational consolation prize.
Yeah.
That's the perception. They're fighting the perception that entire industries are somehow subordinate to a 4-year degree. It's an old story, but it's persistent.
Hey gang, it's so exciting to have you part of an EDGE series. We have you part of what we're about to do, and if you're brand new to this whole industry, or brand new to this, going into industry terms because of what we're going to be talking about today, but if this is the first time that you've ever been on one of our EDGE interview series, what we do is we try and bring people of different expertise, of different professions in front of you. People that have failed, people that have won, and we want them to come to you. A lot of times in life, we wonder about a certain profession. We wonder about what someone's doing, and you hear it a lot that someone says, hey, can you do this for a living? Hey, what are you going to do when you grow up? Well, today is especially for you. Those people that have heard that stuff, as a young man, young woman, as you're out there and you're wondering what you're going to do in life, so many people have told you, hey, what are you going to do? Hey, what are you going to do? And you go, oh, maybe I'll go to college. Maybe I'll do this. Well, our EDGE interview series is about talking about success, talking about those winning attitudes, talking about attitude in particular, and talking about the different things that come from it. And today's no exception. All right, today we're going to go through something as you may have just watched with Mike Rowe. All right, we're going to talk about skilled trades. We're going to talk about when it comes to industrial, construction, and service industries, what's happening right now in America, and setting you up for a bright future with these 3 individuals that we have. But if you're brand new to this interview series, here's the deal, okay? I'm here. I'm kind of a little bit of a loud. I'm kind of a little bit crazy when it comes to some of these things. But we want you, as you can see right now on your screen, to put in your questions, all right? Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat or a Q&A. Right in there, type in some questions. You're going to have questions for these 3 special people in my life, and will be special people in your life. You're going to have questions for them, especially about how they got into what they did and how successful, all right, and some of those great things that will come from it. So don't be afraid. Type in some questions, and no question, because at the last 15 minutes of my interview with these guys, all right, I need tons of questions so I can watch these guys squirm. They don't squirm in their profession. They're just good at what they do. But when it comes to questions, they may be a little bit squirmy. So you got to help me. All right. First thing you got to do is say, Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, wherever you're at, Happy Thanksgiving. I know you're just overcoming the turkey, but probably you were just excited because you had 2 days off of school, maybe 3 days off school, and tomorrow you're going to have to go back to school. Well, we're going to get you set for that so that school can be exciting and an experience as opposed to dragging on. So, with that all being said, today is about skilled trades. Today is about something that I really didn't understand when I was growing up. Really didn't understand. I was told go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and go to school meant going to college. Where are you going to go for college? All right. So I just blasted into that and missed this whole thing that both of my brothers ended up going to and having great lifestyles, great owning companies, being industry leaders. All right. Doing really great stuff by not taking that shift over to this way and becoming very good at what they do. All right. So we're going to talk to you guys today from a young lady by the name of Michelle Rogers. Michelle Rogers comes in from the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area, and she is a home, I guess you would say, a small business. She owns a daycare. She does amazing things with young kids, and we're going to talk to her. We're going to talk to another individual by the name of Phil Bontrager. Phil Bontrager comes in from Goshen, Indiana. Goshen, Indiana is, if you've been down by the Amish area down in Indiana, that's where he's from. All right, he comes in with an amazing background, amazing family, all right, amazing background in plumbing and electrician, and very, very good. He's been doing that profession for a lot of years and very good at it. And then our last person that we have in this great panel is one of my good buddies by the name of Blake Harris. Blake Harris, all right, comes in from, you can say Warsaw, Indiana, you can say North Webster, Indiana, all right. But he has a profession as a builder. He takes homes, all right, I guess Phil Bontrager too, but they take homes and they go from nothing to something that we can have warmth in them, all right? So these are the guys that we're going to be interviewing today, and I'm so excited about it. So hopefully you are. Hopefully you're ready to take some notes. Hopefully you're ready to look at these guys and go, what about that, all right? So without any further ado, I want to introduce you first to Miss Michelle. You know, she's right now, we love technology, because Mount Pleasant's just down the road from me, but she's out in Utah, and we get our chance. So, Michelle, if you could just tell us, just say hi, and then tell us a little bit about what you do in your profession and how you are called a professional. Miss Michelle Rogers.
Hi, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. I am a licensed daycare provider. I've been licensed in Michigan for 20 years. I've done it like basically my whole life. My mom did daycare as well. I'm licensed for 12 kids, and I take care of kids all day. I don't know. What was your other question, Aaron?
So what does it mean to have a daycare? What does that entail?
Taking care of other people's kids, helping them a good lifestyle during the day, changing lots of diapers, just instilling, like, I always just wanted to be a mom. So like I portray them as my own kids, and I just help raise them and give them good values the best I can.
That's huge. And you said something that we're probably going to kind of interweave in here. And you said I had to get licensed in that. You know,
right.
So maybe some of the teenagers are like, you know, hunting license, driver's license. What are you talking about license? What does that mean to have a license in your profession? What does that mean?
You can only watch like 3 kids without being licensed, at least in the state of Michigan. You have to go get a daycare license. They come in, check out your house, make sure you have everything that you need to watch kids. And they make sure you go through like criminal check. You have to have CPR, first aid, different training hours with hands-on with kids.
So what you're saying is it takes someone that is really good to then put that knowledge down to paper. And I know some of you guys out there, not another test, not another thing I have to go. But how many of you guys would love to have good people like Michelle taking care of you when your parents are gone or your parents are at work, and Michelle comes in and fills that need? What we're going to talk about a little bit is what skilled trades do. And that's an old term, but what Michelle does is she fills a need that's there. And she said, I instill values. I help raise them just like they're my own kids, even though that I'm doing it for an occupation and doing it for over the last 20 years, especially having a mom that showed her all those great things. So we're going to get back to Michelle because I got tons of questions for her because she opened up a big door there with this whole license thing. All right. Next guy that I want to talk to is Mr. Phil Bontrager. Yeah, well, let's go from there.
Well, I grew up in a family-owned business. We did plumbing, heating, electrical growing up. We had up to 15 to 20 employees at all the time, and I just learned from my two older brothers the trades. It's been good to us. It's one of those things where you're not always happy to go to work in the wintertime and when it's cold, but that's kind of my background. And then in the mid 90s, we sold our company, and I actually framed houses for a few years with a friend of mine. And then moving on, one of our former employees came back from the mission field and got into business for himself, and eventually actually me and my two brothers are now back working for him, and I've worked for him for 15 years. And right now I primarily do electrical work, but for a while I did mostly plumbing, and we don't do any heating or cooling anymore. But that's kind of my background. I don't know where you want to go from.
No, that's great.
This, but,
a lot of times, when I was growing up, I would see people build homes or people coming in and building homes, and I didn't understand how they got into that. One of my brother that's right below me, my brother Chris, he started in high school. He found somebody that was a builder that was just like Mr. Bontrager, that was working in electrician, and he went in there and learned an amazing skill. Myself, I either have a black thumb or all the nails are crooked every time I start swinging at them. Or this electricity thing, like Mr. Bontrager is talking about electricity, you have to have really good skills and a lot of practicing, or your hair ends up like this, like mine would.
like mine.
I don't understand electricity. Or maybe it's gone. That's maybe how he learned how to have no hair. All right, he decided I didn't want it to come off of his head, so he shaved it all. I don't know. But what he's talking about is great. He learned plumbing and heating. All right. And then as his dad sold the business and he stayed with the company or the individual that bought it, and he continues to do that, he was showing me pictures of these amazing houses that he gets to build and help put in the different things electrical, and very big profession on that side. So Mr. Bontrager and Mrs. Rogers, now we're going to move to Mr. Harris. So Mr. Blake Harris, kind of the same profession as Mr. Bontrager, but a little bit different. All right. Can you explain a little bit, Mr. Harris? Welcome, and explain a little bit about what you do.
Well, I guess I kind of had that same story as Phil Bontrager, that when I was growing up, my grandfather was a contractor, so he was kind of more of a home maintenance guy. He was a guy that if you wanted something done, you went to him because he was normally a little cheaper and he got it to work. I don't know if he was a master of anything, but he's kind of a jack of all trades. And growing up, I was always around that, and I never thought that's what I would do for a living. I never thought that would be something that would interest me to the rest of my life. My dad worked for Purdue University, so his thought was, as you go to school, get good grades, get a good secure job coming out of that. So I went on, tried out school for a little bit, and quickly realized I was actually going for construction management. And I quickly realized that wasn't the path I wanted to take, because I wasn't looking for the management side of it. I enjoyed the outdoors, the hands-on, the physical side of it at the time. So I actually, after a year and a half of school, I decided not to go back to that next semester, and I started working for a contractor. I bought a nail bag. I tell everybody, I said, I realized that a nail bag was cheaper than my school book, so I bought a nail bag and went out and did that define, learn, do thing. I wanted something different. I learned from somebody that had some experiences in it. And I got some great opportunities. I fell in with a contractor that was building very high-end homes, multi-million-dollar homes. I've had a couple opportunities to build some homes that were, in the $10 to $15 million range, something that most people don't get an opportunity to even go through. And just because of chance, I ended up in a spot where I was able to work on some of those projects. And then through that process, I realized that, my boss, he made more money than me. So I said, well, I'm going to try and do what he did. And I gave in some notice, and a friend of mine and I partnered up, and we just went out and we found a niche that we enjoyed, which was doing the siding, the exterior finish. What the house looks like when it's all done is the part that we kind of specialized in. And we just realized that if we got real good in that niche, we could make a better living than bouncing around from being mediocre at several different things. So over the last, I think it's been about 14, 15 years, we've been running basically a siding, windows, decks construction company. And we range somewhere between, anywhere from 3 to 7 people working on that project.
You guys are saying so many great things, and Mr. Harris, you went up through so many great things there. You said I tried school and it just didn't work out for me the way that I thought it and I anticipated it to do. See, a lot of times we come into, if you're out there listening, one of the things that we want to get over with you when it comes to skilled trades, number one, it's what Mike Rose said in our first initial video. He said, at least when I was growing up, vocational trades, they called it. It was terrible terms that meant that you weren't going to have a college education and you weren't going to have a diploma. And it was kind of like for the people that couldn't make it in college, you needed to go into skilled trades. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible, because a lot of the people that I seen at college, and I'm not saying don't go to college. That's not my point. My point is what Mr. Harris said, define, learn, do. I didn't do that. I jumped into college because that's what I was told to do. And I didn't try it. I had to wait to see if the degree worked, which could mean 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 12 years based on the profession. And I would see people 9 years through the process of like I went to school not enjoy what they were doing at the end. And they didn't try a whole bunch of different things. They didn't define, learn, do. So one of the principles you should be bringing to your heart and to your mind right now is what Mr. Harris said, define, learn, do. I decided that school books versus a nail bag's cheaper. And he enjoyed it. He found some different traits in there that he really enjoyed, and we're going to kind of talk about that. So coming from those different things, and I think we kind of talked about, but I want to go into a little bit more depth. So my background being a physical therapist and going into my master's program as a physical therapist to get my training, I didn't have any experience besides internships before I was considered a PT, and I got my master's already. Everybody that's sitting on this panel had become a master's with experience first, and then learning through that, and they became an experienced master, not like I did. I was an educated master, all right? So that's the cool thing. So, Ms. Michelle, tell us a little bit about your training to own your company, or your training to be a daycare provider, to be a licensed daycare provider. How did you learn that?
A lot of it, I guess, because I've grown up around daycare. My mom did daycare, and I used to babysit growing up, like probably since I was, 13 years old. And then I had Janessa, my daughter, and she was probably about a year and a half. And I had a friend that needed somebody to watch her kids, and she couldn't find anyone, and she was nervous to send them somewhere. So I said, well, I'll start watching them. And then I found out that legally I had to be licensed. So I checked into it and found out that I had to go to some training classes where you learn what you have to do to get licensed, which is like you have to do CPR, you have to get your background checked, and you have to do CPR first aid, an all-day daycare licensing class. So I just did what I had to do, and I don't know, just it's something I always knew. I just wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to go to college. There was no desire to go to college. And so I thought, okay, so I just went ahead and did it. And here I am 21 years later, still doing it.
So Miss Michelle, how many student loans do you have from all that?
0.
One of the tragedies that are going on in America right now, especially if you're a teenager, you really need to think through this. You need to think through the value. We're going to do another interview here shortly, and we're going to bring on someone that's high in finances and understanding and how finances work. And I know that's a strange term for some of you guys when I start talking about how money works, what's the value of a dollar, student loans. But it's a crisis of my generation. The generation of mine, the X generation, the Y generation, the millennials are coming out with huge student loans and not an ability to pay for them. And it's one of the right now. When you watch or your parents are watching news right now, it's crazy what this thing called debt is. And a lot of it has to do with student loans. Not that going to college is bad, but how we're paying for college is bad. And that's the cool thing that Miss Michelle said, I really wasn't into college, but they still had me do certain training. And they call it almost, in daycare not necessarily calls it this, but it's an apprenticeship of skills that you need for the crisis that would happen in your job. And as Miss Michelle was talking about, CPR is huge. I have 3 young kids, and there could be a crisis of swallowing something wrong. There could be a crisis of bleeding, all right? And you need to understand some of these things for the job to become a master at it, as Miss Michelle is. And she said, I just learned babysitting, found out that it was something I loved to do. And did she say found out it was something she loved to do? She found it out as she was in the action mode of it. That is the coolest part about what we do. All right. So that's awesome. So coming back at this, all right, one of the things, trillions of dollars, exactly. You guys seen that? Trillions. Hopefully, I'm going to have one of you guys start right now, start counting, and see if you can get to $1 trillion by the time we're done with this interview. All right. If you can't, that means it's a lot of money that we're in debt. All right. Ask around what debt means. All right. So now, Mr. Bontrager, now in the heating and plumbing industry, some people call it HVAC. That's an industry term, all right? And then plumbing and electrician. So what is your training? What is your background, Mr. Bontrager?
Well, can you hear me, Aaron?
Yep, you need to speak a little bit closer to the mic, but you're good.
Okay. One of my, I guess I want to try to get from a different perspective, because I may have had an unfair advantage growing up in a family-owned business, and I'm sure there's kids out there thinking, well, my dad doesn't even know how to screw a light bulb in or something, So, but most of your parents, whether you are a boy or a girl, a young lady, young man, do things around the house. And so here's what I would say, and I know Blake would agree with this. As soon as you can, just learn the basic skills of using a hammer, learning how to use a tape measure, because it's unbelievable how many kids come out of high school, they don't even know how to read a tape measure. They don't even know how to hit a nail in, And so if you are, like Blake said, if you feel that, or Michelle said you just don't feel like you fit into that mold of going to school and getting an office job or a corporate job, you love the outdoors, or you want to do something different, start when you're 7, 8, 9, 10. Just, if your mom needs a hole dug for a plant, offer to dig a hole, just so you know how to use just basic tools. That's a huge part of starting your training at that point, is because I know my dad, I kind of got a unique thing, having people work for us and working for somebody. I mean, Dad would hire a couple people, and boy, they had a great story about how great they were, but they'd come into work the first day and you had to teach them what a tape measure and so know those basic skills. And that you can start right now. Get a hammer and some nails and start in a board and start driving nails into it, or anything like that. Measure out stuff. Start measuring your own height. Anything to learn how to run a tape measure and just basic stuff. And then the other thing, we had the privilege when we had our own business. The local high school, Goshen High School, would have us come in and help with their industrial arts program. And so if your school has a great industrial arts program, maybe when you get into high school, and a lot of schools will build a house and take you through the whole. I think from when we taught, 4 of the students that I know of right now in our area that we had the privilege that went through that program with Goshen High School own their own contracting companies, are doing very well for themselves. I mean, we're talking well into 6-figure incomes just by starting that process. So those are a couple things you can do just to get, if you want to go down that path, get around it. I'm not trying to say watch TV, but watch home, if you can get online and just watch a few things, but just hands-on, start just being involved with that stuff. And then just start working for somebody. And what most employers are looking for is somebody that works hard, is on time, is willing to learn, and has some people skills, knows how to say hi and hello and be polite. So that's kind of, I guess, the training part. That's a little bit kind of that side of stuff.
That was awesome. There's so many things I was writing down. Okay, I'm going to ask him this, and you answered it. So what you're saying between Michelle and Phil is try it out. She said she tried out babysitting and found that she loved it when she had her first daughter. She said, man, I might as well just do this as a profession because I loved it so much. Why can't I carry it over? And Mr. Bontrager just gave you a game plan. A game plan is setting you up for victory. Now, I don't expect you, if you have hardwood floors, to see a whole bunch of holes in there and say that Mr. Radosa was saying on this Edge interview that I need to grab a nail and a hammer and start pounding it in hardwood. No. You need to go out and get some wood outside, all right, in the garage. Ask your dad, ask your mom. That's the cool thing about our professions, too. It's not a mom or dad thing. It's not a boy or girl thing. There's great electricians that are boys and girls. There's great daycare providers that are boys and girls. That's not the point. The point is to become good at what you do. Mr. Bontrager said, it really takes three things. And that was my next question, so I'm going to really hammer on Mr. Harris here. But he said, find somebody out there that's doing it and ask them. See if you can be hired. But they're going to look for you to be on time, you to be a hard worker, and want to learn. And that's the great thing. You don't even have to do that when you start swinging a hammer. You can go to a Goodwill store, you can go to a Restore, or you can go to your grandpa, grandma, and they probably got 6 or 8 hammers if you don't have a hammer. And you can start get your own tool belt from that side of things. You can go and talk to someone that's babysat before, and you can start to do that. Now, we're going to shift a little bit, because probably Mr. Harris and Mr. Bontrager are kind of the same training, but Mr. Harris is along the hiring line. So he's owned his own company where he's had to hire individuals just like you guys listening, and maybe not so good at hitting the hammer. So what do you look for? One of the things, Mr. Harris, one of the things that was really difficult for me is I had to go all the way through those 9 years of school before I was to be hired. And I already had the label of PT, and it made me focus or try to be a physical therapist, and I really didn't understand the profession until you're really working in it. Now, how do you hire somebody? Maybe it's the same trades. How do you hire somebody, and how would they go through that apprenticeship? Is it possible?
There's really not an apprenticeship. I mean, it depends. There's different levels of employees that I'm looking for when I'm hiring people. Whether I'm looking for somebody that it's kind of a double-edged sword when you're hiring somebody that knows a lot about construction, because in the trades there are multiple different right ways to do things, and it's just I kind of have a joke with the guys that I work with, that work for me. It's not that those other guys did it wrong; they just didn't do it right, and it's an opinion of the way that I want things done. So if you're taught something, so if I would go out to hire somebody on that is a master carpenter, that has the skills, that has built homes, there's a good chance that as he works with us, we do things different. So there's still a learning curve there. So, but yet there's also the side of things that, is it better to hire somebody that knows nothing and teach them along the way so they learn the process of how I do things? So there's kind of a 2 different levels in there that I'm looking for. But like Mr. Bontrager said, the traits that I'm always looking for is somebody that's willing to work hard, somebody that's willing to show up, somebody that can, has people skills, that can talk, that isn't a mumbler, isn't, that carries himself well. When they get out of their truck, their shoes are tied. They don't stand around with their hands in their pockets. If they have downtime, either they grab a broom and do something, or they come ask for the next task. And like Mr. Bontrager said, a lot of times you don't know that until you have them hired on for a little bit. And then you have to work, through the process of training them, to perform the way that you would hope they would be able to. Because for the most part, if you show up on time, you work hard, and you're respectful, you can be successful in the trades, because it's a learned skill. It's not natural talent. It's not like basketball that if you're 4'3", you're probably not going to play on the NBA. You know, if you're 4'3", you can still be a good carpenter. You just use a taller ladder. So
that's so great. So you brought up a concept that that you guys are going to hear in time. It's called a concept called art and science of every profession. There's a certain amount of training, all right? And sometimes into the construction, Mr. Bontrager and I were talking about that this morning. There is money out there for you. There's a lot of individuals that would love to, if you have those skills that Mr. Harris was talking about. How do you have the skill of hard work? You start today. You have the attitude of hard work. How do you have the skill of showing up on time? You decide to have the skill of having, that's what is so great. You're not born with the skill of being on time. Some of you guys, your mom wanted you to come out a lot faster than you did. So you may have even been not even on time to begin with. All right. So that's not the point. You start to have those skills because you're willing, you know, wow, Mr. Harris said I have people skills. I'm kind of quiet. That's probably because you've never had the opportunity to get into something that you love. When you get into something you love, you start to talk about it. You're curious and you start to go through it. And as I was saying, in the industrial side of things and in construction, even in the service industry, all right, when we get into nursing homes and different skills, when we get into kind of when it comes to commercial, I guess food services and things like that that are very skill based, there's a lot of money sitting out there for you. There's a lot of companies that will pay for you to go, they hire you, and then you start going to a community college that has an apprenticeship program. All right. And they work you up to be an apprentice while you're working at the same time. Two of my mentors in leadership did that from a college level at a company called, or a university called GMI. And they started to do that. And it was apprenticeship to engineering and then become a master. And Mr. Bontrager and I were talking about that, becoming an apprentice journeyman. You'll hear this term journeyman and a master. All right. So, but the art and science, I love, if you walked into Mrs. Rogers' daycare, if you walked onto Mr. Bontrager's area where he's doing electricity, or if you walked onto Mr. Harris's house that he's starting to build, they would all be unique and not like any other builder electrician. There's certain things you do. You connect wires all the same, and you connect edges of wood all the same, and your CPR is all the same, but you can have your personality. You can have the art of it. That's what's so great. He said, you know, everybody gets their little niche. I love that term. Your niche is you. You are the niche. You are the niche that we're talking to and that we love. This is the first time that you've ever been on this Edge interview series. We love that you're on this. Stay tuned for more to come. We have a YouTube site called kidsleadingtoday.edge. All right, jump on it. You're going to get little snippets of all these different things. And last time we did an interview, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Brian Powers. And Brian Powers has a great niche when it comes to fighting wildfires. And so look at it. If you're reading the screen right now, copy that down, kidsleadingtoday.edge. That's our YouTube site. Jump onto it, and you're going to find some of these different professions, some of these different attitudes. So if you're brand new, get down to the Q&A, get down to the chat, all right, and type in some questions, all right, because we're going to go into a little bit more depth of this when it comes to understanding the art and side. Because a lot of times people say, shut down that, it's time to learn from books. Well, it takes away sometimes of your personality, and we love your personality, and that's the art and science of what we do. So I want these guys out there to understand. A lot of times, you brought it up, Mr. Harris, you brought up professional basketball. You know, sometimes maybe your body's not equipped for being a professional basketball player, but we see these lifestyles. All right, I'm starting with Mrs. Rogers. What is your life in a general sense, maybe even fine-tune a little bit to be good or an expert in what you do? How do you live?
How do I live? Oh, gosh. Well, basically, I work from 7 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. I'm closed. Kids, it's family time.
So what you're saying, Miss Michelle, is you can have choices in your profession too. You can choose what time you can have your own schedule.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
So in the beginning, I used to work longer hours, but then I realized that I was putting my family last. And to me, my family is more important. And so I changed things. So I'm only open 7 to 5:30 Monday through Fridays. And well, my daughter is 22 and grown out of the house now, but I still have other things I have, on my priority list. So I love it.
So you're saying that you can have a comfortable home, you can drive a nice car, you can have money coming in, you can have money for fun things, you can do things outside that. You live in Michigan, but you're out in Utah right now. You can travel a little bit when it comes to your profession. Is that,
Right.
Yeah.
Because I actually am closed tomorrow. I have workers, and normally I don't close, but I decided that I'm going to close tomorrow so that I can enjoy my vacation a little longer.
So you can have vacations too, and you can choose when it's open and when it's closed. That's so great. Mr. Bontrager, what's it like to be an expert in what you do in electricity, plumbing, heat, HVAC, or heating and cooling for those people that are out there? What's it like to be an expert? What is the lifestyle that an expert gets?
Well, lifestyle. I'm trying to think this through. Well, first of all, can I just comment on one more thing that Mr. Harris talked about?
Absolutely.
To get into the trades or get into something, he said something that was key. If you think, I don't have a lot of connections, or how am I going to get hired if don't have any experience? Now there's companies that don't care about quality so much. So you really want to research your companies and make sure you come on board with a company that does care about that. If you can ask around a little bit, it doesn't take long. But most guys that really care about quality would rather hire totally inexperienced and train them their way than hire an experienced person. That's how our company operates. We've never really hired anybody from somebody else. We've always brought in somebody brand new, no experience, so we can take them and make them, mold them to what we want them to. So don't let that ever discourage you. So that's just a little plug for that. Lifestyle. Growing up in a family-owned company, we went through good times and bad times. There was times our employees made more than we did, but overall, my dad and our family's done really well for ourselves. I work for somebody now just simply because we didn't want to have the headaches. Sometimes we were tired of self-employment, but I don't mean that to scare anybody, because I know Mr. Harris is in a spot. And I want to put a little plug in for the Edge series and a little bit of the information. I believe if we would have had some of the information, I know Mr. Harris is using that for his company. If we'd have had a little bit of that information, how to systematize things, how to think through things, we probably still would own our company, just because sometimes we just didn't handle situations right. So if you can, become a part of the Edge series, start studying a little bit of leadership and systems thinking. And I know this, I don't want to scare you with too much learning and I don't want to read out, but if you truly want to be on and Mr. Harris alluded to this, he started his own company because he realized the owner was making a little more income than him. People skills and leadership skills now, and go into being being your own business and your own company, you can make some really good income doing that. We're talking, I know my dad in some of the years probably made close to what a doctor made, but he was 8th grade educated. So just know that there's a lot of income there. If you're willing to do a little self-education and learn how to work hard, you can have a pretty nice lifestyle. And Dad was able to, when you get enough happening. But like I said, if we'd had a little more of the knowledge I have now through life and the Edge series, we would probably still be in business. We'd have a little more systematized. But man, there's some good lifestyle there. And even as an employee, it's there for you. So you bet.
Mr. Bontrager would never tell you, but he has 3 children. His wife is able to be home and take care of those children. He doesn't have any debt when it comes to that. Never had a student loan debt. He was amazed, and things happen in life. No matter what happens, sometimes you go through hard times, as he was talking about with his dad with the profession. But it was great that he had an amazing skill, because one of the things that you guys maybe is, am I always going to be an electrician? No, those skills carry over into so many different things. Solving a problem when it comes to building, solving a problem when it comes to daycare, handling a child will help you in everything. Will help you in everything. And that's the key to life, is learning problem solving. Being hungry, being a learner, all right, being willing to go out there and be curious, but then be a problem solver. That's our whole goal. Success is all about solving problems. That's it. Whoever can solve the biggest problems gets the most success. And you've seen with both Mrs. Rogers and Mr. Bontrager, what happened is they're very successful in what they do when it comes to vacation. Mr. Bontrager talked about his dad and owning the company, and then you guys are exposed to the edge. He said the key to it is having the edge up on the edge. You guys are exposed to great information that if he'd have had that when he was younger, they may still have and not be an employee, he would still own the company. So he's just giving you a huge pointer. He told you something that he would have loved to have learned. Our whole aspect of this is if we could go back and talk to me when I was 13, 14 years old and say, hey, knucklehead, hey, listen up. This is what you got to do. And then that was amazing as if I could have learned those things that you guys get a chance to learn. And our job here is just to open your eyes to that and go, what if, Mom? What if, Dad? What if, Grandpa? What if, Pastor? What do I need to do? All right. So, Mr. Harris, all right. I know your background, and I know what you guys are doing right now currently, which is cool. You see, the cool thing about Mr. Harris, he is sitting in a house that he built. All right. You see the hardwood behind there, the hickory, he built that. So what's the lifestyle like to be an owner and a builder of homes?
I mean, it definitely has ups and downs, just like Mr. Bontrager was talking about. You know, there's years that are great. Then there's years that you have to be careful. But by plugging into different information and getting around a mentor, I get the opportunity to, you guys don't understand how privileged you are to get the opportunity to be around Aron Radosa and his wealth of knowledge in interviewing us. But he has a wealth of knowledge beyond, you know, just that as far as with finance and some of that other stuff. And we get the opportunity to mentor directly with him. And he's helped us through a lot of that. And just changing our thinking through that process, we've learned that on your good years are good, and your bad years, you know, you have to save back from your good years so you can get through your bad years. And we've been blessed. We're in an area in the country that is just, the economy is great, and there's always been plenty of work. So we haven't had really tough times. I was blessed during the recession and in 08, and when that time was happening, we were had an opportunity to work on some projects with some people that had enough money that had saved through being the business owners, that even though the economy wasn't doing well, they had cash readily available that they could do projects, and they kept us employed, which was great. But, you know, I mean, I guess the lifestyle is like Mrs. Rogers was saying, is by being self-employed, I do get to choose what hours I work to a certain extent. I mean, I have deadlines, and I have employees that I have to make sure that their families are provided for too. So there's responsibilities there. And by being an owner, I enjoy the trades. I enjoy the hands-on physical part of it. So I still do that, which means that a lot of the office time, a lot of the bidding, the meeting with customers, the figuring pricing, the making sure that jobs are going to work out properly, that the right equipment's there, that the right people are on those projects to get those things done, has to be done in my after hours. So there's a lot of behind the scenes things. When the guys that work for me go home and they think they put in a long day, there'll be nights that I have, 5-6 more hours to do, but it's by choice because I understand that I got into construction because I enjoyed, at the end of the day, I walked away from a project and I could physically see what I accomplished. And what I didn't like about when I was going to school, I was actually working for a large construction company, and I sat at a desk and I sat in front of a computer screen. And at the end of the day, when I turned my computer off, I couldn't tell what I did. But when at the end of the day, when I'm done, if I'm siding a house, or if I'm putting windows in, or if I'm building a deck, or if we're working on a lake house and we're framing something, at the end of the day, I was able to walk away and feel satisfied because I could physically see that I had accomplished something. And whether it was just what I had done, or I was able to coordinate a crew of people to put that together. So, you know, and it has definitely, it has provided a comfortable lifestyle for my wife, April, and I. She's been able to be a stay-at-home mom. She was able to homeschool my boys for several years before we were able to put them into a private Christian school, because we felt that that was important, that they had that good upbringing, you know, a Christian background upbringing there. So we chose to do that, and the lifestyle has been good. The one thing that Aaron has alluded to several times is we were able to. I went to college, and because my dad was working there, I got a good discount. But I walked away from. I started my construction company. I started my career in construction debt free. You know, I mean, I didn't have to have, you know, 30, 40, 60, $70,000 worth of student loans to be a carpenter. I could buy a couple $100 in tools and instantly became profitable just because of that. So I might not walk away from, you know, after 4 years of school, I might get into, you know, if you're going to be a engineer, you know, the pay scale, the pay rate might not be as high as a starting carpenter, but over those 4 years, my increase in pay, and I walked away with a zero debt load. So it just gave me a lot of opportunities. I don't know if that's too deep, but that's kind of what I've gathered out there.
No, that was perfect, Mr. Harris. Now, you guys would be surprised at how fast our hour went by. All right, we're down to the last 15 minutes of this great interview. Man, I've been taking notes like crazy. I hope that you guys get into this idea of taking notes. Hope that you get into it, because we can't learn it all in the 45 minutes that we've been together. All right, we have to take some time. There's a lot of great wisdom in Mr. Harris talked about the Christian faith and a lot of great faiths that are out there. But it talks about meditating upon the things that you've heard and taking some time to think about it. What today was about is to start to think about the skilled trades, to start thinking about those things that you will do after high school. And they told you some amazing things. Now, with your help and all the questions I wrote down as you guys were tapping them in, we're going to ask these three individuals some great questions that you guys brought up. And so from our panel, we want you just as quick as you can to answer these questions in one word, one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences, a little bit about the questions that are being asked. So the first question that came out, I'll hit Miss Michelle with this. As a young person, should someone focus just on one thing, one skilled trade, or how did that work?
I think that it's important to just find what you like in life. Like sometimes people don't realize that, oh, maybe you like taking care of kids or reading, or there's all kinds of things. Like I never really liked to read, but I loved reading to kids or helping out. So, you know, my biggest thing is I went different places where I could help people with kids, whether it was babysitting or just anything, even at church. You know, there was times people just needed help. And I think, like with my daughter, I told her while she was in school to try and do something that she loves, because your life's too short to not enjoy what you love as far as work. And hair, all the time as a little girl playing with hair, so she did that. Went into beauty school at high school.
That's exactly. Mr. Bontrager, so if they want to focus, should they be focused right on like electrical, or what should they do?
Man, I think, I really think during your high school years, we had a family-owned business, but I had actually an opportunity. Dad, I worked for my uncle laying sod. I worked for my brother-in-law on a farm. I think if you get opportunities like that and somebody offers you some of that, that was when I was, 12, 13, 14 years old. I learned a lot of little different things. I worked at my brother-in-law then sold a farm and had a feed mill. I worked there. I just got a taste of some different stuff. At some point I think to really be successful, you have to focus on one thing and get really good at it. But I think through your high school years is a good time to if you have some good job offers in a couple different areas. And I think it's really, be really careful who you work for too. Like, don't be scared to interview them a little bit. because you can, just for instance, we run into certain jobs where we don't do heating and cooling anymore, but we did it as a company. And man, there's just some really not good jobs done, but it's because they learned from somebody that didn't know how to do it, and they learned from somebody that didn't know how to do it. So just do your research and work for good people. And you can usually find that out by just asking around a little bit. But I think growing up from the time you're 13, 14 to you're 18 is a great time to hop around. Maybe you want to be in the food industry. Maybe you want to be, go work at a restaurant, go work at a, and one little thing, and I'm not against college either, but if you truly want to own your own business, going to college for business school will not do it. The best way to do it is find some of the best business owners in your county and go work for them and watch how they do things. It doesn't hurt to get a little formal education, but if you want to be in business for yourself, go work for somebody that owns a really good company and watch them. You'll have much better success.
Right on. You guys are saying so many great things, so many cool things. I think Mr. Harris already hit this, but what's the favorite part of being a builder?
I did hit that because it's something that I always thought of is at the end of the day, I saw what I did. And I just, my personality, I'm not a sit around kind of guy. I don't enjoy sitting still. I'm always a hands-on type of person. I mean, my business partner in construction, we dabbled a little bit in the ag industry, and I tell everybody the thing I loved about that was I hated the animals, but I loved the chores of it. I love the physical. At the end of the day, you could see what you could do. So I love, at the end of the day, when I jump in my truck and pull away from a job site, look over my shoulder, and I know that I physically put that together, and I can see what I can do. And it's kind of a way that I can, in the morning, I can go into that job site and say, I want this, this, and this done. And I can keep myself on check and balance to make sure I got, when I'm leaving, that I got that, and that done.
That's great. That's great. Now, a question came in specifically for Mrs. Michelle. All right. First of all, you got a great comment. I don't know if you can see the comments come up, but your daughter, business owner, because she watched a great business owner right in front of him. Mr. Bontrager can probably say that about his dad, that he watched a great business owner right in front of him. And Mrs. Michelle's daughter is not in daycare. She's in a beauty salon, but she watched a great business owner, and those skills brought it over to her so that she can do what she does and do it better. All right, or at least at the same level and move forward. So an individual asks, so where does someone go to get a license in daycare?
You have to go through, if you're in Michigan, go to the michigan.gov website and just research it. It gives you exactly how you're supposed to go about it. Most states have, it's under DHS or something, Department of Human Services, and there's how to get licensed. I know, like I said, I started 20 years ago, and it's.
Oh, she cut out on us. She froze up. I think she did, or I froze up. So she was telling something about a good license, and she froze up. All right, that's what happens when you're out in Utah. Utah, you never know what the altitude will do. So sometimes people will be just standing there and they'll just freeze. And all it has to do with the altitude that sometimes us in Michigan we don't get because we're thick air listeners. Her connection is frozen. I just got from my IT guy. So she's probably hearing me talk about her, all right, but don't talk about her so she can see me. So I'm not talking about her from behind. I'm talking about her in front. So the last two questions, and this may be perfect for Mr. Bontrager and Mr. Harris. There's these terms out there called apprenticeship, and there's these terms out there called journeyman or masters. What does it mean to be an apprentice, and what does it mean to be a journeyman?
Whether it's HVAC, plumbing, and electrical in the state of Indiana, an electrician, you can actually, as long as the owner or somebody in that company has an electrical license, the rest of the company can work underneath that license. So that's kind of nice if you're in Indiana. you really don't have to go get a license. You just go learn, and you can work underneath the company's license. Now, HVAC, I believe it's the same way. In Michigan, that's a little different, I think. And of course, there's people all across the country on this. So you got to kind of find out what your each individual state's laws are. But for plumbing in Indiana, apprenticeship is basically you come in and you get an apprenticeship card, which basically means you're limited in what you can do, but you're learning, you're on the job with what we call a journeyman's license, somebody that has a license to do plumbing, and he teaches you. And I think in Indiana, you got to do 8,000 hours, which is a lot, which I think the laws have changed a little bit. And then you get to go take a test downstate, and you pass the test, and you can either get a journeyman's or a contractor's to own the company. If you're a plumbing company, to own it, you have to have a contractor's license, which just means you got to do a little bit more. But that's the apprenticeship license. Just means you don't have your real license, your license yet, but you're learning how the process works. But each state is different, Aaron. Each state's different, so that's where you just have to kind of find out what your state requirements are.
So, is that the same comments there, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, with construction, it's like with residential versus commercial, or sometimes with the union is where you start to see your apprenticeship, your journeyman, your labor, and with that, it's just the skill sets that certain. I know with the union a little bit that a journeyman's not allowed to run a broom, and the laborer isn't allowed to do certain aspects of it, and they can actually get fined over those different things because and it's just kind of the way that carpenters union set up. In smaller, still non-union, there really isn't a whole lot of titles with that necessarily, unless it's in the individual. There's in Indiana, there really isn't a construction license that you have to get. Some counties you have to be licensed to work in, but it's not necessarily set up that exact way like the plumbing is. I know the plumbing, if you're going to be I was just talking with a plumber the day before yesterday that he's a licensed plumber, and he has an apprentice that is going to school to be licensed as a plumber, and then he has to work along with a licensed plumber the whole time that he's working. He can't even be left legally, they can't be left on the job without a licensed plumber there doing plumbing.
So what you guys heard today, so between Mr. Harris and Mrs. Rogers, she's on again, so we didn't lose her. She didn't freeze up in Utah like we said she did. All right. She just lost the connection. All right. But she got the connection back. And I think that's the key to everything that we did today. Skilled trades is cool. Skilled trades are what's needed. And if you watch the video to start with, there's 7 million jobs. Actually, he talked about welding in particular. There's such a crisis in welding right now that no one seems to be going in there. And those that are coming in may not be those ones that are perfect at it, are becoming better and better at it. So what happens is we want you guys to run out and experience things. Get hired. Ask if you can help out in certain things, whether it be a daycare like we talked about with Miss Michelle, whether it be talked about with heating and plumbing and electrical like we talked about with Mr. Bontrager, or when it comes to building and construction like when we were talking to Mr. Harris today. All right? That's what this Edge interview series is all about, is bringing great professionals right in front of you so that you can ask questions, that you can do this. And that hour went by fast. I so appreciate these guys. I so appreciate these guys are close friends of my wife, Mary, and I. We've known these guys for a while. And now I finally get an environment to put you guys in front of the amazing people I get to be in front of, because we heard today, it is the right info. It is getting around the right information. If it's not, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. That doesn't mean you slow down. That means you run towards whatever you're going to do. If go to school, get good grades, you may not know that. One of the individuals I talked to yesterday was an instructor in the skilled trades. And he said, I wished everybody would go out there and they would learn a skilled trade and then maybe go back to college, or maybe that skilled trade would pay for your college. Like he was talking about, there's a lot of money and resources out there to pay for you to go to college as you learn a skilled trade. All right, so there's great things out there. We talked about building homes. Man, I love homes. I love the architecture that's involved, and there's so many different skills in that. Architecture, draftsmen, all these different things that go with building a home. And when it comes to daycare, when it's just loving kids, all right, learning about them, being CPR, there's so many great things in the service industry, whether it be food services, whether it be caring for individuals, working in a nursing home. Mr. Bontrager didn't tell you, but he worked in a nursing home for a year too, before he became all that, to figure out. And the cool thing about it, he's got married because a young lady was there. So you never know where that profession may take you. But the cool thing about it is we have that in front of you guys. So thank you so much, Mr. Bontrager. Thank you so much, Mr. Harris. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rogers, for being on this, being on the interview series. I'm going to ask you as collective, can we have you on this again someday? As we do a live, I guess you would say a seminar one day, can we have you guys and ask you guys to be back part of this? Because you guys are truly experts and professionals when it comes to you. Is it okay if we do that sometime?
Sure.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Well, we put them on the spot for one reason, is that you guys never get a chance sometimes to put individuals on the spot. So it is the right information. And as you heard from all three of them, it is knowing the right people. Now, here's the thing that most people mess up is the third part. You are the right person. All right. A lot of people think and they wonder, and sometimes we have dark nights, dark days that we just think no one likes us, and there's this old bullying thing going on and all these different things going on. Well, here at the Edge interview series and here from Mr. Radosa, we love you. All right. We know that you're meant for greatness. We know that God put you on this earth for one specific thing: to succeed, to run towards your destiny, whether it be skilled trades, whether it be going to college, whether it be in between that, it doesn't matter. It's about going out there and running into life and understanding that problems will happen, but you got a whole group of people around you that want to love you. So December 16th, I think I wrote that down right. Maybe, no, the third Sunday of December. We're used to doing this on the fourth Sunday of the month, but that would be Christmas Eve. And I'd be talking to a whole bunch of people that wouldn't be listening because they'd be thinking about their presents and shaking them the whole time. And we can see every one of you. You guys don't know that, but I see everything that you're doing. All right. But December 16th, and we're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about some things that may be foreign to you, that may you not understand. We're going to talk a little bit about finances. So I'm trying to get my calendar up so I'll know it. But look at our website. It'll have the contact information on how you can tell somebody else about this. Oh, December 17th, my IT guy, Mr. John Prim, who's an expert, always sends it out and tells me at the right time. So December 17th at 4 o'clock. Now, stay tuned. One last thing. We're going to shift in 2018. We're going to take this little interview series and we're going to do a little bit different. Hey, how many out there would love to have your parents become better and better at what they do? So we're going to shift this interview series to start talking about big subjects, and we're going to help your parents become better. We're going to help the individuals, your uncles and your aunts. We're going to help your pastors. We're going to help your people that are teachers, and we're going to help them become better, and we're going to start interviewing them for adults. So as you're moving into adulthood, we're going to start doing a little bit harder hitting talks. So we're going to still have the edge talks, but then we're going to also have some life talks. All right, and we're going to interview those, and we're going to bring that together. So we love you guys. We'll be seeing you right before Christmas. All right, so don't eat too many Christmas cookies before I see you, and then if you do, make sure I get one. Got it? All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We love you guys, and have an amazing Sunday. God bless.